making something a bit more visual today. We are going to actually, over the course of 3 different videos, learn how to make a game of Snake like this before we start. So just like Snake, if you've ever played it, you've got your Snake character, and as you collect these little red dots, you get longer and longer, and the aim is to try and get as high a score as possible. Now, there's lots of different things you can change about this. You can change the size of the screen, you can change the amount of apples which spawn, you can change the colours, everything about it. But we are going to have a look at actually how to get this done, and actually how Pygame works as well. Okay, the first thing you're going to need to know about this is in order for it to work, you have to have installed Pygame. I've linked in the description how to do this for Windows and how to do this for Mac. It's a pretty straightforward process, but you do need to do it or else it's not going to work, because Pygame is one of the imports that we actually need. So before we get started, we want to import Pygame, and we want to import time and import random. Okay, so these 3 imports are what we need to get started. So what we can do to actually create a window is just do pygame.init. So all I've done here, I'll just do this last bit here. So the display, initialization and the display here, this just creates the window. And we're saying that we want to create a window which is 300 by 300. So you can change these variables to whichever size that you want. But at the moment I'm saying initialize a window. Here, the mode for the window is that it needs to be 300 by 300. And then we can set a little caption at the top as well. So like at the moment mine's called untitled. We can give our window a little like name. So pygame.display.set caption, and then set a little caption like that. Okay, and that's all we need to do to start off by making the windows. So actually if I run this, as you can see, we've got a little windows popped up now. Unfortunately, the little X's don't work and things like that because I've not programmed that in yet. So in order to close it, I'm going to need to close this. Game actually looks. I've already created a little window. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some colours down here for us to use. So Python uses colours which are RGB. So it's 3 colour values: red, a green, and a blue colour value. So they go up to 255. So it's things like, if you want white, you can set the red, the blue, and the green to 255, and that is how you get white. Similarly, if you want black, you can set the red, the RGB to 0, 0, and 0. Use some weird spacing there, but it doesn't really matter. And then if you want other colours, you can look them up. But I'm going to just put in a yellow, red, a green, and a blue as well. So there we go, that's all of our colour values there. I've mixed and matched a little bit, so obviously red in RGB would just normally be 255, but if we add in a little bit of the green and the blue as well, it will soften the red, so that's kind of what we're aiming for there. So these are our colours. They're going to come into more use in a little while. So what we're after now are our snake variables. So what we want is a snake speed. I'm going to set this to 15. So 15 is talking about 15 frames per second. So the higher this number is, the faster the snake will actually move, and then obviously that will make the game more difficult. What we're also going to do is just get a size for the snake as well. And this is just to say it's I'm going to create our snake being 10 by 10, but if you increase this, then you can increase its size as well. So now what we want to do is we want to create a little function here which actually draws out the snake. So at the moment it's going to use a couple of variables that we haven't actually talked about because they'll be kind of created later on. So for the time being, what we want to do is we're going to create a function to do this. So This one here, it defines snake, and it takes two arguments. It takes the snake size, which we looked at earlier, and it takes a snake list as well. So we'll look at the snake list in more detail later on, but at the moment we'll just have it like this. And we're basically going to iterate through our snake list. So our snake list will at some point create all the different positions of the snake's body, and this X will iterate through it and then draw out each position of the snake's body every single cycle. So it'll actually do it 15 times per second. So what we need to do now is we need to draw each position from the snake list. So we can actually use a function in Pygame, pygame.draw.rect, and this will draw a little rectangle. We just need to give it the positions that it needs, or the arguments. So where does it need to be drawn? Well, it needs to be drawn in our display that we created up here. What colour does it want to be? So let's make it green. What positions do we want it to be at? I'll explain these in more detail in a second. X, X1, oh. So what we've done here is we've given the coordinates. Basically this is like an X and Y coordinate. You'll see how these get saved later on, but basically in the snake list, every position, every X in the snake list has two different sections to it. It has a current X for that part of the body, X position, and a current Y for that part of the body as well. And using that, we can draw it to the screen. The snake size is like the width and height of the pixel we want to draw. So we've already said it's 10, so it's 10 by 10, basically is what I'm saying here. Every part of the body needs to be 10 by 10. So that is it for drawing the snake. What we want to do now is we want to actually be able to put the score on the screen. So we can create a function called score. It's going to take our value here. So the value it's going to actually put up is going to be score. Render. And again, these are little functions which we can use, pre-built things to actually draw text to the screen. So value, just explain what this is doing in a second. So all this does here is this takes out our value, whatever score we have at the moment, and it stores it in this value variable. Then this bit here says to this where we want to display that value. So display the value at coordinate 0, 0. It's basically the top left corner of the screen is where I want to display that value. And so that is it for actually setting up the score. One last thing just for setting up the score, I also need to say what colour I want it to be. So in here I just put a colour here as well. So basically this thing here is going to tell us to render the score as a string, and we want it blue, and then we draw that value at position 0, 0. Right, next thing, we want to just set up the clock so that we have a constant tick, so frames per second actually work. So Pygame actually has its own clock, so we just do clock equals Pygame dot time dot clock. So it's actually a function in Pygame that we can use. And then finally, we want to for any other information that we want to display, we want to actually just take a couple of fonts to begin with. So font style. So all I'm doing here is I'm just taking these fonts because I can actually use these when I'm displaying other information in a second. So you can put any fonts that you want in here as long as your system has them installed. So this number at the end as well is the size of the font. So I'm saying that I want the size of the font to be 20 for these ones that I'm displaying. And finally, for this part of the video anyway, we are just going to define a little function here called message, so that when our user dies, it comes up, Snake sort of dies, it comes up with this message saying whether or not they want to try again. So we'll give this function the message to display, but let's actually just create the function to begin with. So message equals font. So all this is going to do is take whatever message we give it in whatever color we give it, and it's going to render that message as a sort of image on the screen. And then this here, whatever message we feed in, will display the message on the screen for us at these positions. So the width divided by 4 and the height divided by 4. So I've kind of done it this way. You'll see in a second, but the divide by 4 actually kind of gets the message closer to the center of the screen. So that is it for this first part of this tutorial. So if you have this part done, we're going to move on in the next tutorial to looking at actually how the main game loop